Hi guys, welcome back to another tutorial. Today I'm going to be showing you how to create an AKS cluster. So I'm going to be showing you how to create an AKS cluster, and hopefully I'll also be showing you how to deploy a mini application. So first things first, so what is an AKS cluster? What is AKS used for? So AKS is mainly used to deploy containerized applications, which mainly involve Docker. So what I'm going to be doing today is I'm going to be deploying a mini application onto an AKS cluster. So just follow along. Right, so the only thing you need right now is your Azure account. So make sure you've logged into your Azure account, and inside the Azure portal, go log into the Azure portal azure.com. And the first thing you need to do is you need to create the resource. So click on create the resource and select containers, and inside containers select Kubernetes service. So we're going to be creating a KS service, right? So click on that, and over here you need to give in a few configurations. So my subscription is going to be pay-as-you-go. Resource group, I'm going to create a new resource group, and I'm going to name it as my latest AKS cluster, right? So it's going to be called my latest AKS cluster, okay? And Kubernetes cluster name, I'm going to give it as my sample AKS. Yeah, this should be fine. And go ahead and look down, and node count, I'm going to give it as initially as 1. So just bump that down to 1. And we're going to need to check the scale settings. Yeah, scale settings, virtual nodes, I'm not using any disabled. So just keep this as it is. And inside authentication, yeah, cluster infrastructure is going to be the same. A new default service principal will be created, and keep this as it is as well. So this should be fine. So just go back and check the basics, and yeah, so go ahead and click on review plus create, and now it's going to check, it's going to validate it, and if it passes the validation, I'm going to be creating my first Kubernetes cluster. So just give it some time, and it should be done in a while. Right, so as you can see, the validation has been passed, and I'm going to click on create now, and this will take a couple of minutes. Usually takes a lot of time for me, so just give it some time. So after this deployment is done, what we're going to do is we're going to connect to the cluster using through our resource group. So just go ahead and give it some time, and it should give you a notification once it's finished. Right, so deployment is underway. Right, so as you guys can see, our deployment is complete. So we've just created our first AKS cluster. So just go ahead and go to resource, and we can view that cluster. And the next thing we're going to do is we're going to connect to the cluster using the Kubernetes command line client. So now that you've gone inside the cluster, so this is your cluster, and the next thing you need to do is you need to connect to the cluster. So for this, we're going to be using a Kubernetes command line client. And so go ahead, and inside this top corner, click on the Cloud Shell and open the Cloud Shell inside your Azure portal. Right, so inside the Azure portal, just hold on, let it connect. The next thing you need to do is you need to configure the Kubernetes client to connect to your Kubernetes cluster. So for this, you're going to need to use the Azure AKS get credentials command. So just go ahead and follow along, and I'm going to show you how to use the portal, how to use the shell to download your credentials. Right, so inside your Azure CLI, go ahead and type this. And over here you're going to need to give in your resource group name. So my resource group name was my latest AKS cluster. So go ahead and type this. and the name would be your cluster name. So in my case, it's my sample AKS, right? So we're going to be using the Azure client to get the credentials of using the resource group. This is the resource group name, my latest AKS cluster, and we're going to be using this, my sample AKS is the cluster name. So go ahead and hit enter. Right, so it says here that it's merged my sample AKS. So this should be okay for now. Your config should have been saved. So go ahead and just use the Kubernetes client command client to return a list of the cluster nodes. So we're going to be verifying whether the cluster is in fact in position and whether the nodes are present. So go ahead and type kube. So whenever you use the Azure command line, you're accessing the Azure CLI. Over here we're using the Kubernetes command line interface. So go ahead and do kubectl and get nodes. So go ahead, kubectl get nodes, hit enter, and it should show you a list of the nodes that you have. Right, so these are the list of the nodes that you have, and over here make sure that the status of the node is ready. So it should be on ready right now. Right, so just remember we only created one node. So in the node selection process it was initially 3, and so I created 1. So the next thing we need to do is we're going to run the application. So I'm going to show you guys how to run the application. So go ahead, and the next thing you need to do is you need to create a YAML file. So if you've seen my previous videos, a YAML file, normally what a YAML file does is that it allows for any deployed application to have its routes configured. So all routes are normally configured, generally configured inside a YAML file. So if you've seen my deployments of React and Angular, you've seen that I normally create YAML files. So again, in this case, the process is no different. We're going to be creating a YAML file, and within that YAML file, we're going to be setting a couple of configurations. So go ahead and use the command line, which is we're going to be using nano, and we're going to give it a name. So in my case, it's going to be azure-vote.yml. So I'm going to be creating a new YAML file, YAML, and I'm going to be creating a new YAML file, and this is the command for it. So after we create a new YAML file, we're going to have to give in a couple of configurations, so just follow along. So hit enter, and it should create a YAML file for you. Right, so this is your YAML file. So I'm probably going to have to copy in a few things over here, and so I've already got it configured, and in my case it's this, and I'm going to go ahead and copy this. Now you can find this, I'm going to give a link in the description. This is located in the Azure online documentations from the official site, so I'm going to provide a link in the description, and go ahead, go back on this and paste it inside here. Right, so I've just pasted it in here now, and this should be fine for now. Right, so we've created our Azure.yaml file. So as you can see, I've copied all that YAML details, and I'm going to be providing a link in the description, so don't worry about it. So the next thing we need to do is we need to deploy the application using the Kubernetes command line client. So go ahead and just follow along, and we're going to be needing the name of the YAML file as well. So go ahead and type kubectl. So kubectl, whenever that's mentioned, is the Kubernetes command line. So apply, and in my case it was azure-vote.yml. Right, so what we're going to be doing now is we're going to be deploying the application, and once you deploy this, you should get a message which should tell you whether the deployment was successful or not. So go ahead and hit enter, and just give it some time. Right, so as you can see, the output, everything says created, and if your deployment was successful, it should show you created. So the next thing you need to do is you need to test the application. So go ahead, when the application runs, a Kubernetes service should be exposed to the front end of the internet. Right, so now that we've seen the application is in deployment, the next thing we want to do is we want to test the application. Now, the deployment may take a couple of minutes, so in order for you to know when the deployment is done, we may be able to monitor the application. So in order to monitor, what you need to do is kubectl and get service. So we're going to be monitoring when the application is deployed, and it's going to be azure-vote.yaml front, and we're going to be watching it. So why am I doing this? Because the deployment takes a couple of minutes, and so that you can know when the deployment is fully done. So go ahead and hit on enter. Right, so this is your cluster IP, and it shows you your port and age. Right, so how long has it been deployed for? So it's 97 seconds. Right, so normally if you've done this as quick as it, if you'd ran this command as soon as the deployment was done, you would have seen a pending over here. You would have seen a pending on the external IP, and that would show you that the deployment is still in progress, So now that we can see the external IP, it shows that the deployment is actually done. And so we can copy this external IP and search for it here. And right, our Azure application is actually hosted on a AKS. So as you can see, guys, this is our external IP. And this is how you simply create an Azure cluster and you deploy a mini application to it. So thank you guys for watching, and I will see you guys in the next tutorial.